against Richmond. You've always got me on a high jump. But anyway, colleagues, good morning. The sponsor of this program is NNPC. And as you know, NNPC is led by the Group Chief Executive Officer, Bala Wunti. He has planned to be here, but for some reason he was unable to be with us. So he had asked me to double my role as invited by the SPE to also convey to him the wishes of his good self and the NNPC Limited, and to appreciate SPE for being faithful to this country, for doing everything and anything that is required to promote professionalism in our industry. So I really want to thank you. My good brother Isaac just spoke about being the chief sponsor. My group chief executive officer will tell you, anytime you see Exxon, anytime you see Shell, anytime you see Chevron, you find in them about 60% of their DNA is NNPC. And then we have 100% of the NNPC. And so indeed, the sponsors of this are the shareholders of NNPC. And shareholders of NNPC are all the people that I can see today, and many people who are outside, representing over 200 million Nigerians. So the sponsor of this program is... having said that, I think it's just to say that Society of Petroleum Engineers has always been apt in choosing the right subject to be discussed. And today, I think, is also the same thing. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have been able to show certain things, but I think I want to provide some context. If Richmond agreed, I've just finished the sponsor's remark, and I'll just do the keynote. We've been told to speak about how do we create legislative framework to enable the attainment of energy transition. And energy transition comes with a lot of complications. I put a couple of slides here just to bring us together so we can have commonality of focus in where we are going. So if the providers can just provide that slide, that could guide us. But while the slide is coming, I just want to remind all of us, last year, NNPC appeared on this conference, and they appear as NNPC as a corporation. 1 year later, they are now NNPC Limited. That is a significant change. And that was a product of legislation. Legislation that we now call PIA. It brought along with it significant responsibilities. And obviously, the authority that are supposed to go with them, which hitherto NNPC never had, are also here with us. And what it means is that we are now allowed to do anything and everything that is legitimate to create value for the shareholders of this country or this company. So therefore, NNPC is a new entity, and because it's a new entity, we owe as a first line to tell you what exactly this entity is. And we'll try to provide to you, if you go to the next slide, please, that indeed the vision of this new company, the new company for which all of us here are shareholders, is to be the dynamic global energy company of choice. Buzzword, dynamic global energy choice. And so the question is, what can exactly make you a dynamic global company of choice? And that will be articulated in the mission of the company. And the mission of the company is simply to continually create value while delivering energy to its stakeholders. So we'll create energy, we'll deliver energy, but we'll deliver it reliably. So continuous delivery, reliably delivery of energy while creating value to the stakeholders is our new mission. Again, buzzword, energy, stakeholders, reliable, and value creation. But in doing all those things, we say we'll be guided by certain core values. And our core values is that we'll do whatever we do with highest level of integrity, with excellence, and of course, with focus on sustainability. The last word, sustainability, fit very much apt into the discussion of today. And that's why it's important for us, because we're talking about legislation, we need to understand legislation in the context of Africa, but there's no country that symbolizes or depicts the reality of Africa than Nigeria. And so let's have some recap. Can we go to the next slide to see exactly what Nigeria is? We all know, but sometimes we forget the reality. We are still about 200, I think precisely 203 million people estimate. But the key point is about 60%, or over 60% of Nigerians still lack access to energy. Over 60% of Nigerians still lack access to energy. We continue to produce energy. The last time we are actually producing about 450 quadrillion BTUs of energy. And we are generating significant amount of resource in the neighborhood of $514 billion. And of course, we are consuming only 6 quadrillion BTUs of energy. We've done that for 60 years, and we deliver to over 60 countries for the last period. And this is a company, this is a country that we all have. But most importantly, our geography is very, very unique and very vintage. We can play anywhere. We can play Pacific, we can play Atlantic, we can go South America. There's nowhere that Nigeria have not delivered energy, be it in China, be it in Japan, be it in Singapore, be it next door Europe, or even to America. And the company that you have today is estimated prior to its cutover to be of value of about $64 billion net worth. And we are generating a very modest revenue of $12 billion. It's important that we take note of this, because we will report where we're going to be by our next accounting year. And Nigerians should now see that indeed there's going to be a real change. And that is the basis under which I want us to contextualize it. What will facilitate this is all about legislation. Can we go to the next slide? And the next slide is to look at it. Indeed, when we talk about energy transition, what does it really touch upon? Again, the word is energy, and when we talk about energy, you must ensure energy security. And when you are talking about energy security, it means you must be constantly supplying this energy, making them available, making them accessible, making them affordable, and making them acceptable. The interplay of several parameters and factors that you require to deliver this energy are anchored around markets, are anchored around finance, and are anchored around investment. For market and finance and investment to come together and deliver the needed energy to ensure energy security across the globe, and particularly in our nation, Nigeria, and in Africa, there must be a good legislation. Legislation that will take into consideration to be an enabler for this. And that is why we're saying that maybe the context of the discussion today should focus basically on how do we create a platform where market, investment, and finance will come together to ensure the delivery of energy in a most sustainable manner. And when we talk about sustainability, maybe we'll go to the next slide. Sustainability today has been anchored around the ESG governance framework. We know about the interplay between environment. I think that energy transition is about running away from fossil fuel. I think the reality of today is changing. The finance community thinks everything about ESG. We agree completely, ESG must be complied with. But how do you create a balance between our ability to meet energy security versus the need for us to do the ideal of complying with ESG. What is it that we can do? Is it by abandoning fossil fuel or in an attempt to make it cleaner? Again, this panel should be able to do justice about what is the interplay that we could do as industry to comply with ESG without compromising energy security. We all understand one fact. Everybody loves energy. Everybody loves energy. And we also know that everybody hates emission. Now, we hate emissions, we love energy. There's not going to be energy without emission. And that takes us to the next slide. Because we do recognize that when you talk about energy, you're talking about all mixture of energy. So the energy mix globally, whether you look at it from the year 2020 or back or forward into 2050, in fact 2060 estimate, when you look at the step energy scenario by IEA, it predicted that over 50% of global energy mix is still going to be fossil energy. In the next 50 years, guys, 50% of the energy is going to be fossil energy. I've seen a new number that say about 57%. And so, if even in the next 30 years, fossil energy is going to be a component that will ensure energy security, it therefore means that this industry should be supported by adequate funding to be able to meet the requirement. And that requirement has been articulated. We'll see in one or two slides ahead of us. Can we go to the next slide? The reality today is that when you look at the growth trajectory of energy, it is estimated that energy demand for the next 30 years will grow to somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of where we are today. And this is driven by electrification of things and several other dynamics. And irrespective of which scenario you look at, you see the demand growing. But you know what? The investment that is required to meet this growth is declining. So look at the rate, whether it's against oil or against gas. All investment in the fossil fuel, be it gaseous hydrocarbon, liquid hydrocarbon, are heading very, very steeply towards south, but demand is going north. If you don't invest today, you have made one decision, and that decision is to create a short supply of tomorrow. When you have a short supply of tomorrow, demand and supply imbalance will set in. And when you have significant demand and supply imbalance, especially in favor of demand, the consequence is to keep seeing an increased energy prices. High energy prices will disrupt our ability of where we started. Affordability will become a questionable issue. And when people cannot afford, social unrest, social crisis. And social crisis could lead to political crisis. And political crisis can lead to anything that no one can control. We've seen what is happening in Sri Lanka. We've seen what is happening globally. They're all energy. The economic crisis in the globe today is energy driven. We are going into flinch into recession. And this is a recession like not anymore. Recession coming, inflation going off. We've never seen this kind of situation. And this is because the energy imbalance that we have today are not being addressed. Simply because people are promoting idealism rather than reality. And I think this panel should be able to do justice to that. And to do justice, maybe the next slide will put where the key legislation should come. There's a push and pull. We don't want dirty fuel, we don't want emission. Yes, we understand that. We want energy transition, we want to accelerate energy transition. We understand that, but we also need energy security. To ensure energy security, I think OPEC predicted that almost $12 trillion, precisely $11.8 trillion, will be required as upstream funding to support the delivery of the growth expectation, the growth that everybody across the world have agreed upon. Guys, $12 trillion investment is required. And that is because about 47% growth increase, according to EIA, I've seen 50% growth increase, are all on the upside. But what happened to the investment? Every financier have decided that he's going to discriminate his funding against fossil energy. They don't want to fund fossil energy, even though we recognize that fossil energy will constitute more than 50% of the energy mix in the next 50 years. And so if we're talking about legislation, there has to be a clear indication of how we are going to legislate to ensure we enable the balance between the need for us to achieve energy transition, whether through the ESG framework or any other parameters, vis-a-vis without doing anything that will compromise our energy security. That kind of legislation is very, very important. And because we are all seated in a different pedestal, some of us are abject energy poverty, that's what Africa is all about. But some are already in our local fathers, they are full, so they can now select energy. They don't want fossil, they want green. So how do you now create that? But the world has a funny way of behaving. People who think they're living in a glass house, they decided to trust on stop energy, stop fossil fuel, and the consequence is that you are seeing what is happening in Germany, across Northern Europe, across UK, even America. Despite their own vintage position, they are all in a state of crisis. And so we just needed to be clear about what we need to do in terms of legislation. And our priority in Nigeria is basically to exit and to achieve the net zero by 2060. I think the government has a clear plan, and the pathway obviously is we have to address this self-deficiency that we have, be it in liquid, be it in electrical energy, or be it in gas for industries. And once we do that, we'll now say that we are bye-bye to energy poverty. And if we can achieve elimination of energy poverty, then we can focus about making sure that we decarbonize as much as possible our energy delivery system. The good thing about it is that even right today, there's no power plant that is burning coal today in Nigeria. Why do we do it in hydro or thermal? So we're already in a vintage position. The moment we achieve that, we move to what we call energy prosperity, which will be enabled by the energy sufficiency. And that enhances energy security. So energy security actually brings about prosperity. And when you have prosperity, you can then aspire to achieve your economic development aspiration. And we believe by the year 2060, with the collaboration we're seeing with our partners, we will exit. Take into consideration global emission by the whole of Africa is less than 4%. And so ours is easier. We can plant, we can do whatever we can. And that brought us to what exactly are we doing to achieve that. And that brought us to what I call the pie chart. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the next slide is that when we talk about how do we achieve that, for us in the industry, and I think Isiaka and everybody from my operators partners, they will confirm we are doing everything to eliminate the player. We are being supported by regulators like NCDME, we are being supported by the Commission, and we are being supported by government. So the first thing we are going to do is to kill the flare, remove the flare, reduce it. And once we can achieve that and reduce it to just barest minimum of operational flare, we then need to replace some of our infrastructure. We are already doing that. Every equipment we are replacing today, either as a result of natural degeneration, we are bringing in a high energy efficient replacement. We are also renewing We are renewing some of the energy delivery. We are carrying out what we call solarization of our operations, and we started with the French giant Total Energies, and we are going very in a accelerated manner to solarize a lot of our operation in our operational area. We're also going to be undertaking, and we're already doing that, either through the high prep platform, whereby as we remediate the environment, we are planting trees and replanting trees. And that we'll be able to do that in such a way that we'll be able to get the carbon benefit to that. And obviously, we want to rebrand. We are no longer oil-producing nation. We are gas-producing nation. And gas will come with associated oil. So please, never you refer to your country as oil-producing because you have 6 times oil reserve in gas. You just have spike of oil. And so why can't you brand yourself? Since everybody wants gas, nobody hated gas. So rebranding Nigeria as a gas country with some spike of liquid means that we can now focus our development. Everything that we need to do geared toward deliberate and intentional effort to produce gas and to produce it in the most economically and sustainable manner. And once we can do that, it therefore means that we will be able to not only rebrand by mouth, but by action, and we'll be able to have a much energy. But lastly, I just want to let you know that if anybody is in the position of NNPC in the Western world, they will not be making a choice of what energy they are going to burn. And that's why we've seen the return of the dirty coal. Can we please go to the next slide? And I think I will stop, I've talked too much. Can you go to the next slide? And that is to say that we have seen a significant reversal of energy policies, whereby all the OECD guys are bringing back the dirty coal onto their mix. Germany is going into even coal beneficiation, the highest level of emission that you can ever have in coal. Last year, they are all telling us, oh, please, you cannot burn oil. Now they are burning coal, and they have no apology to it. Everybody around here, they are burning coal. But what is happening is that either by legislation or regulation or practices or positions, they're still shying away from saying, please, can we fund fossil fuel? And I think legislation should again focus in enabling finance, enabling investments so that we can meet the energy market requirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bala Wunti is the Group General Manager for Napims, the investment arm of NNPC Limited.